Hey, FlimsyLunchTray here, and welcome to World of Warships for our Friday highlight, which is going to be with the British Tier 10 Research Bureau destroyer, the HMS Druid, which is a gunboat destroyer here in the game. So I actually attempted to do a live commentary with this video, but it didn't work out because I don't have a boom mic and my keyboard and mouse was just too loud. But here you can see just a brief overview of what we have and what we're running, and I'll do an upgrade commander build video tomorrow on the Druid. So we'll get into all those details as we go ahead and drop into the game here. Not going to take too long for a battle to load for us, but I can't recall the cost of the Druid, so I'm pulling up the armory right now in game so I can see how much this ship is worth and just be able to kind of tell you, like, do I think she's worth it or not. Oh, perhaps if I log into the game. Yeah. So we're going to be here on Trap in domination mode. This video was recorded as of today, this morning, so it would have been like around 6 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, and sometimes I'm not always sure what we're going to run into that early in the morning. You can get like 6v6 or 9v9 matches, but we have a full 12v12, and noting we have 3 radar ships. You have the Talon, you have the Des Moines, and you have the Essex. And it's going to be a bit of an annoying battle in terms of with the CV. The CV player is on both teams are pretty good, especially the enemy one. So I might give a small rant about CVs here in the game, but the cost of the Druid is 56,000 Research Bureau points. And if you like gunboat destroyers, as I'm emphasizing here, you have no torpedoes on the Druid. She's a pure gunboat with these 127mm armor-piercing shells that have a reload time of 1.7 seconds. We shut our AA off, 3.3 by air, 6.6 by sea. This ship is all about the guns. Now, I haven't played this ship a ton in randoms, but I've played it a lot in mode shuffle and some of the other temporary battle modes, and I really like playing Druid as a gunboat. I was talking with some people this past week on YouTube, just like, you know, gunboats are pretty straightforward in terms of their positioning because you're not having to worry about your torpedoes constantly and getting positioning your torpedoes off. It's just literally point and click, and be paying attention to your positioning here in the game. So at some point I'll do the pros and cons from the WoW's wiki, or I'll just throw them up on the side of the screen here. But some of the things, let's talk about the consumables on this ship. You have a short range hydroacoustic search, and when I activate it, I have fully built into it with Commander as well. We have a 3-kilometer range for hydro and 3-kilometer range for torpedoes. So the hydroacoustic search is more defensive and spotting torpedoes for your teammates, as you see me utilize later on in the game. And we have a repair party that's actually pretty potent. Without taking into delta, your max HP per heal is 2,530, but with the India Delta combat signal, it'll jump up to 3,036. So I do take the India Delta because with a gunboat destroyer, typically you're getting a lot of these gun engagements, so you do need to get the most out of re-heals, and you're going to see I'm going to need as much health as I can get, and how this game ends up here. And then typical with the British destroyers, we have the short burst smoke generators, where we have, I think they're, with the smoke combat signal we took, we have an 11-second action time, and I think it's a 40-second duration with just under a minute cooldown time on the smoke generator. Now this game, starting off here, the Essex used, I think, a smoke screen to kind of conceal his turn there to get in behind the island as you see our team focusing on him. He's going to be playing pretty close to the cap, as me and the Holland here have picked up Bravo cap. And I'm, at this point, I wasn't entirely sure where the radar cruiser or radar ships were. I think I knew the Rhode Island was up north, but I was just kind of waiting to see what happened here as we get spotted by the CV. And I decided, okay, let's go ahead and turn out. We're going to disengage, and we have to disengage because this CV player, this is probably where I'm going to begin to rant here a little bit. Not against the player, just CVs in the game a little bit, and then I'll go back to talking more about the ship here. This CV has decided that a player has decided he wants Bravo, and he's going to fight tooth and nail for Bravo throughout the entire duration of the game. And Essex is a bit of a busted CV in terms of her dive bombers and attack planes, if I remember those two correctly, rockets, because they're consumable oriented. That you can never run out of those HE dive bomber planes. You can never run out of those HE rocket, the tactical, whatever you want to call them, planes, because they just completely regenerate. So as long as it has to wait for that timer cooldown on those, then it's just really annoying, because you're going to always, even to the end of the battle, you're going to see full squadrons of those two types, where maybe he loses torpedo bombers over time. So the Holland makes a mistake and going for Bravo. It's not going to be smart for him to do that, even though Holland has a pretty decently strong AA. I made a decision. I can't fight for B. I can't hang around there. There's 3 destroyers up at C. So we're just going to disengage, and the CV drops fighters on B, and then we end up getting spotted. So it's not really actually the radars. We have, Des Moines 10 kilometer, Tallinn 12 kilometer, Rhode Island 10 kilometer. It's going to be the planes constantly spotting us, which is ultimately going to be our ruin here in this battle. Now, this Massachusetts, I think we take Superintendent here on the Druid. I do a good thing here, but I also do a bad thing, and I'm going to kind of talk about that. I decided to go ahead and drop a smoke for him, because at this point, the team is quite far in advance, and I want him to live. And normally, before I drop a smoke screen for teammates, I will always ask, do you want this smoke or do you not? And he fires his guns right after I drop the smoke screen, which means the smoke fire penalty. He is going to be seen. And with our hydroacoustic search, I pulled up in front of him to spot any potential torpedoes, and I think these were the gearing torpedoes. So it's just, World of Warships is so frustrating. If you have a destroyer player who smoked you up and maybe he didn't ask you first, right? Assume that he's wanting to try to keep you alive. Otherwise, my general rule of thumb is I always ask before smoking up an enemy battleship or a friendly player, excuse me. And he thanks me in chat, which is nice. But he's still going to throw away his ship here. You'll see why here in a minute. So if a player doesn't confirm that they want the smoke, just don't give it to them. I mean, honestly, it's so sad that that's what becomes of the team play. But it is what it is. So with our 6.6 kilometer concealment, we don't have the best concealment here at the cap. The gearing outdoes us. The Marceau does not, because he can only get down to 7. I'm going to try to get this cap, and I'm concerned that, there's 3 destroyers here. One of them should be stepping on the cap, and it's not going to be the Marceau. It's going to be some other player up to the north with 6 seconds on the clock is going to step on up to the north of the cap. So somewhere up there, and for now I've made a decision. Well, we're down 2 ships. I'm not going to just simply step off the cap. I'm not doing much in the sense of tactically. This is a pretty slow burn. We have 0 damage so far in the game, but we're playing a pretty strong points game. They have their enemy Ohio that stepped on the Bravo. He needs to be killed and reset as well. And our team completely gave up the south end of the map, A cap, which is going to bite us later on in the game, and we have to deal with that too. So this is it comes very close in the end, but not at the beginning. It looks like we're pretty much getting our butts handed to us. So I decided to go ahead and smoke up, and I was thinking 2 things. I'll just see if I can try to keep the Massachusetts alive again, but I thought I spaced. I didn't check the main battery range because I was trying to give commentary while talking about the ship and trying to do like a play-by-play, and that just doesn't work out so well for me when I try to do live commentary in the Friday highlight video. So we don't have range, and so I burned 2 smokes that would have been so helpful later on in the game. So that was the biggest critique I'm going to give myself this game, is that I shouldn't have just used those smokes in the Massachusetts player, And then I get frustrated because the Akazuki player, as you see, he's almost dead. He decides to move up where the dead Massachusetts is, and he's going to die here shortly, because when you're that low as a destroyer player, I get asked by you guys sometimes to not just only critique what I'm doing, but also critique what maybe my teammates are doing or what wasn't such a wise decision to do. I'm going to critique the Akazuki. He has no business being in front of the other destroyer who has way less health, because all it takes is for the S6 to fly over, spot him, and our team begin to focus him. Now we finally run into Marceau. I wanted to come up here and check. And so because my teammates are spotting this Marceau, I can actually go dark here, and we can keep shooting him here. And we're getting some nice penetrations into his side. You can see his health is going down and going down. And we do get the kill on him there, which is great. And so the Talon decided not to come down on the 10 line. I thought he would. I kind of critiqued that. But I recognize now, looking at the minimap, I mean, I have 2 battleship players behind me, and there's also still 2 destroyers besides me here at the moment. And the CV's back over here as well. So he's actually playing it well and being further back. It makes the most sense. And then the enemy Talon takes out Akazuki. I don't know if he got picked up by radar or if it was plane spotted. But then we see the gearing. Our CV spotted him, and we get to kill him. Again, you know, it's just because this TV spotting is what's really killing the destroyers this game. The rant that I didn't continue on with, as we're going to engage the Kansas as I step back on the cap, is that my theory is as World of Warplanes went down the toilet, because hardly anyone plays that game, the Wargaming staff had the great idea to bring some of those staff over into World of Warships and have them develop more of the planes in a World of Warship game versus their playing game. And so now we're having more and more of these just broken CVs. I mean, remember back in the day when we thought Nakhimov was a busted CV, right? And now Nakhimov it's still busted, but it's not as busted as these other CVs are. And until Wargaming addresses more of the spotting, like, this is a battle that is totally in the hands of the carrier players. Because our midway player, I think he's pretty competent from what I can see and how the game progresses. But ultimately, a lot of the player deaths in this game and the spotting is a result of the 2 CVs. So, like, you're just warships and a plane-based, what's becoming more and more of a plane-based game. I mean, maybe you think I'm being a bit too harsh or arrogant, but I mean, literally, as you have more hybrid planes, it'll only be a matter of time before they have hybrid submarines in the game. Like, they'll sugarcoat that and sell it as a premium. Like, I think Leicester Studios did that on the Russia server. So it's just really annoying to have more and more planes, and that high tier is becoming more and more unenjoyable. And the CV player, you'll notice, I think he actually smoked himself up there as our Montana running around the corner of the island trying to kill him. We have our other destroyer player who's also trying to kill this CV, but he runs into the Trump, and Haveros didn't take a det flag. If you're going to play tier 10 randoms, any random, you need to be taking a det flag. But the Haveros gets lucky, and he kills the Trump with his fire. So you're going to see more of why I end up ranting against the CV later in the game. And the CV player, I have nothing against him. He's like full on taking advantage of what Essex does best. Because it just, anyhow, back to the Druid. So talking about the AP DPM, this ship does here in the game. I want to pull that up because I want to make sure I say this correctly. The Druid has the 8th best DPM here in World of Warships among other tier 10 destroyers. So that's quite strong. I mean, of course, you know, these are 127mm guns. As we activate get our fearless brawler skill going when we were detected. But it's really makes this ship shine, especially as we ran into the Kansas and the Marceau, and then when we run into the Shikishima later here in the game. You're going to see that DPM you can pump out where this AP shines, right? You don't have a high explosive on the Druid, but you have 8 armor piercing, and it does the best on broadside targets naturally. It just shines there. Where maybe something like L being with AP, you kind of want the destroyer to turn out so you can get more of the penetrations. And we went behind this island here because I was expecting the Talon radar to come up. And so that's why I moved and didn't just sit there in the smoke still. I didn't really need to use that smoke. I meant to use my heal, I think, back there, and I fat fingered, so I burned another smoke. So I'm not playing really well this game with my smoke screens, with that being said. Your reload time with this main battery is the 4th best in the game. As you can see in this battle, we were able to bring it down to 1.7 seconds. And, as we lose hit points with Adrenaline Rush or activate any other skills, our DPM comes out quite strong. And here I decided to go ahead and just take some shots off at the Talon. I'm trying to weaken him, so maybe our CV or other battleship friendlies can get some of the needed kills on him. And one of the weaknesses, of course, with the Druid is that she's meant to be played bow in. She doesn't do so well with this kite because of not having any rear turrets, as the CV is going to torture us. But I want the CV player to think I'm going to stop in the smoke screen, where I'm actually not. I'm going to accelerate away. So I use that smoke screen in the sense to bait the CV player to drop so I could avoid his torpedoes, because if not, like, we likely would have died from those torpedoes, or taken a good chunk of damage with the Talon still shooting us. And that Talon is a really good player. He's still taking shots at us as we continue, to sail out and away. I think he even takes some blind shots here still too. But recognizing the pressure, there's two things we're doing here. One is we've used our smoke, we're running. Here come the HE or the dive bombers. If you want to make it difficult for a CV player, then get beside an island. It makes it a little more difficult, so I'm actually going to have to sail around the corner of this island. It makes it more difficult for them to get a drop on you sometimes. So that's what we do here. And then I don't have a smoke screen here. It would have been great to go ahead and use one, and I'm like, yeah, maybe even if it comes off cooldown, I'm going to wait a little bit. But I'm allowing the Shikishima secondaries to bring me down a bit more, as I'm focusing more on the superstructure. And I'm going to correct that here in a minute, because he's at the range and we have a better sight on him, where I'm going to start shooting into his bow. So another mistake I made here is just not using the smoke screen as soon as possible, because we just end up taking more damage there than we should have. And we would have been fine, right? Or we would have had more health to utilize later on here in the game. But we're abusing our heals. We're actually going to take a lot of damage this game for a destroyer that has 28,800 hit points as a whole. The Borgone's trying to be cheeky and get some salvos off at a battleship. So I'm trying to weaken him down with the hope that our CV player, you can see his torpedo planes are flying that way. So I'm trying to work in tandem with our CV player. He's dropping fighters on me, so he is aware that I'm being pressured by the CV. I'm the last destroyer. There's 8 destroyers, and I think only, I was the only one left halfway through the battle or something of all the destroyers, or maybe it was a little over halfway through the battle. So now my goal is to push up here towards B, because I know this Borgone probably wants to step on Bravo, but our CV is dropping him with the torpedoes. It gets him low enough that it's like, okay, maybe I need to finish the job with my guns, which, we can kind of use this part of the island here to just lob our shells over here. The other thing is I need to mention, as we run into the CV again here shortly, but the Montana is able to take out the Borgone, is our AA strength. We have the 10th best AA in the game at tier 10, but that actually doesn't say a lot. It's only like good AA. You'll do decently good against tier 8 CVs, but against tier 10 CVs and super CVs, you're just going to be crapped on, despite how many planes we end up shooting down this battle. And this, you can see the CV player, he's dropped fighters on me, which is smart to do. He wants to keep us spotted, so he can be able to line up a attack. Ideally, he doesn't want to drop us bow on. He wants to drop us broadside, excuse me, as we're taking some shots from the enemy ship back there. I think it's the Rhode Island, because the Talon has his hands full. And so when we go bow in like this, then that makes it easier to avoid the torpedoes. And even if we would have hit one of those torpedoes, they weren't armed yet. But then, look, he just dropped that strike, and here comes the Essex again. And I realized Essex has stepped on Bravo. And one of the things that's busted about the Essex is that you see a mix. You see Essex players use the smoke for teammates, and you also see them use them for themselves, which this Essex player is mostly used for himself throughout the game. A carrier player at tier 10 capping. How often do you see that? Literally, how often do you see a carrier player who's not back in B1, B2? So again, he's a good CV player. Like, he did well. I'm not crapping on him. What I'm crapping about is the ability of the things that a good CV player can get away with. Super Unicum CV players can get away with some rather questionable broken things, because, yes, Flimsy, it's just a game. I know that. But it's just busted what CV players can get away with in the game. So I was kind of questioning at this point, should I have not stepped onto the cap? We were kind of already bow in. He got that full squadron off really fast, and I wasn't counting on the necessarily. I knew the Rhode Island was somewhere over there, but it just ends up being crap. Maybe we could have just simply gone try to turn out around the island to the north on the 7 line. But the reality is that there's about 2 minutes left in the game, and points matter, right? Which is why I was trying to focus on that early in the game and contesting the points for as long as it did at the C cap till we got in there and able to get the kill. So I tried everything I could to help us not to be in a better situation with the points early on so that it wouldn't be as much of a stressful thing at the end of the game. But it's still quite stressful, right? We knew Talon and Rhode Island were away enough from Bravo cap, right? Talon was up north. He got crapped on by the Midway. And then now you have the question of, in my mind, I'm like, well, they can pick up the Rhode Island if the Montana gets another AP salvo into him and the Midway is able to get a strike off on him. But the Montana kind of makes a mistake here. He should have kept selling on the B, but in reality, there just wasn't enough time left. But maybe he would have had an angle to get the kill off or one more salvo into that enemy Essex sitting in the Bravo cap. So this isn't an amazing game. We were still going to do really well at the end. It was definitely very difficult. It's difficult being a destroyer in Mortal Warships, especially at the high tier when you have a lot more gimmicks now with the CVs than you're used to. And how do you play around that? So this game was kind of showing you that making that early decision that like if you're near a CV, he'll just decide to focus you out and you just have to leave that cap. And we had to go focus on the north at sea because there were 3 destroyers up there, in which we killed 2 with the help of our CV. But it's like becoming a game where more and more you're living in the world of planes. It's World of War planes. It doesn't feel as much like World of Warships unless you try to drop down more to mid tiers and the low tiers to get away from that. So, but every team, they played really well. Hats off to them. So here you can see all the main battery hits. We didn't have as much main battery action as I was hoping to have in this game, but we played it when we had count. But we were having to constantly deal with that enemy CV and shooting down 18 of his planes. So it makes the gameplay quite frustrating as a destroyer player, and that's why you saw the destroyer players die so fast in this game, because they just really didn't stand a chance. We're gonna get second on our team, and you can see how many planes between the Montana, Druid, Midway, and also that Holland, who shot down 42 planes before he died. Probably some of those were also fighters, but it's just kind of obscene to shoot down that many planes and just be like, yeah, it's still an issue. 1.2 million potential damage, and damage received was 39,000. So that's the power of the heal with the Druid and running that India Delta combat signal as well here on the ship, as it just allows you to... It does allow you to an extent to make mistakes. The two things, the big thing I messed up on was just using my 2 smoke screens for the Massachusetts. I just shouldn't have bothered. The first time seeing him fire his guns into smoke and not just go dark and heal. He only has a 40-second cooldown time on his repair party. I should have never dropped that second heal for him. I should have never done that. So when we needed maybe more smokes there at the end when the CV was focusing us, that would have been helpful. And then of course I fat fingered the one when we were engaged that Talon when we were still in the C cap, or the CV spotted me. I'll take that back. So you have to manage your smokes really well as Druid, otherwise it can come back and bite you in the butt, and that's basically what happened here despite our best efforts. So this game maybe doesn't give you a lot of hope for playing Druid here in World of Warships, but I do assure you it's quite fun, especially like with mode shuffle, where you kind of getting close with other enemy ships. It's a really fun gunboat destroyer. You just mostly play battle in. Pretty simple, straightforward to play. I quite enjoy it. I don't know if I enjoy it more than Vampire 2. I feel like maybe, and I quite like Vampire 2. They're both really close for me. But I really do enjoy playing the Druid. So I'm actually going to play some more games today and over the weekend, I think, in randoms with Druid. So I'm planning to try to feature a video more on Druid and showing you a little bit more what the ship can do. But here's an example of just dealing with the CV as you try to get around the map and try to get the win for your team, but not always possible. So if you liked today's video, give a thumbs up. If you didn't, give a thumbs down. Subscribe if you do want to see more. If you're subscribed, thanks so much. I appreciate it. Thank you to my Patreon supporters. And tomorrow, upgrade commander build video here on the Druid. Until next time, take care.